All right, I've got recording turned on, so I'll post this for anybody who misses this part. So for this one, I want to give you a couple of other things to think on and show you some examples that other people have used for this project. One thing I wanted to do regarding your instruction sheet, let me share my screen again, is if you do want to add any of your artwork to your instruction sheet, here's how I recommend placing those items into the design. The easiest thing you can do is to select any of your artwork and save it as its own individual file. So I could save my cookie as an Illustrator file, my ice cream or my cupcake as their own individual Illustrator file. But if you wanted to export this and use this just as a regular rasterized file, here's the way I would do that. I'm going to do it for, let's do it for my donut. First off, again, make your artwork larger than you need. So in this case, really, really big for my design. When I go to export it, so we'll go back up to File and export the selection. The file format you want to choose shouldn't be a JPEG. If you have it as a JPEG, it's going to add a white border around your area. In my case, I'm going to save it as a high quality PNG. PNG allows you to have that transparency, and so when I save this, I should be able to place it within my design and keep the transparent background for what I have. So I'm going to export this one, hit export. Now I can jump into InDesign, and just like with my other artwork, create a little picture box, go up to File and Place, and let's place that PNG file that I created. File and open. Again, remember it's nice and big, but that's okay. All I've got to do now is to scale this down and it fits well within my overall design. Uh-oh, hang on a second. Now this isn't right. I remember. I ran into this problem again. You can see I'm not getting my transparency. It's giving me that, that ugly gray background. Bear with me a second. Let's see if we can fix this problem. Jump back into Illustrator. Let's save this up one more time. File, export selection. Something tells me that this is a glitch. I bet that PNG 8, let's set it back down to just a regular PNG. I'm gonna do it one more time. Export the accent. Jump back into InDesign. Now let's replace this one. So we'll go to File, Place one more time. Asset number 7, got it. There it goes. Okay, my mistake. So when you export these, choose PNG, not PNG 8, and certainly not as a JPEG. Now that I've got it saved, got my transparency, can scale it down, I can place this wherever I need it to be and have it fit and useful within my design. Adding these extra little embellishments is a great, simple, easy way of making your design look a whole lot more appealing. So if all you have on here is just text, it's going to be kind of boring. If you've got text that's got some decoration to it, that's what I want to encourage you to be able to do. So far, so good? Thumbs up from some people? All right, okay. So this is what I'm looking for your design. I'm going to continue working through this for the rest of the class period. By next class, I can show you the overall package. Let me show you some things and give you some things to think on that other people are working on. Let's see, I've got this. We'll close out Illustrator. Let me show you the updates that people had turned in previously. We'll go to here. I love the design that everybody's turned in. This is why I want to show you these. Nobody's turned in anything that's totally off the wall or undoable. From what I've seen, everything looks good if you've turned it in. Now, if I haven't seen your work, that's kind of on you. So for Amy, she's keeping the traditional theme. She especially like that she chose a font that matches the theme and style for her design. So she's keeping the cakes and cookies and was playing around with lots of different styles of backgrounds for her cards. Keep in mind for these card backgrounds, you want it to be subtle enough that it's not overpowering what you have in front of yours. So for instance, this cake design, if I were you, maybe I would drop the opacity or choose some colors that were a little bit lighter that don't clash with these nice, bold, really higher resolution, what I'm trying to say, high intensity colors that are in the front here. You could take this design and maybe add a white outline or a white glow around the edge, and that'll give you some contrast to read around this. But otherwise, she's sticking with the same theme, and she's playing around with those designs with this. This is Anna Carter's design. Now, Anna's doing a really, really fun theme. Let me jump to her theme image. She's doing different kinds of mythical creatures. So she's got all these different ones. Anna's taken my illustration class, and so she's using her illustration skills to sketch out all of these different designs for each of her cards. And I assume you're going to go back in, add color, add more info to it. But
Yeah.
I would make for an awesome design. So all of these little mythical creatures, mythical styles, using her skills learned in another class and applying it to here. Did I get that correct, Anna?
Yes.
You can see she's playing around with the different names of her design, applying it to the box. I like this. Let's see, maybe if I was looking at this, I can't zoom in right now, concentration. So it's going all the way across the top of your card, your box that you have, reads really well. Let's see, going back and get a little bit closer design. Maybe for something like this, I would give it a darker outline, like a drop shadow. That would give you a little bit more contrast between your background that you have. Make it a little bit easier to read on that. I love the texture that you added to this. It's almost like a wooden or a typography, a map type design. So I think that works well. When I see this is reading good. I think I'd like to see what this would look like on top of your card box as well, especially since you've got that double border. That looks really nice for that. So again, any style that you want, you can certainly use those for your design. For Miss Noli, hers, let me show you her research first. So she found all of these cards that were high contrast, black and white, and almost had kind of a good and evil or a duality type theme. She liked this idea of knights and older kings, that kind of stuff. So these were her inspiration images. And then she started to find these other images of knights and armor and suits, and she's using those within her card layout. And I love the style, the contrast for those particular designs. So each one would have a different style or a different suit. And you can see how she's added a decorative border to add the information into there. So this is just kind of her playing around and doing the research. That works out really, really well. She's relying very heavily on finding images. She's not just copying the images straight. She's actually applying filters and doing some artistic effects that we learned and used from our first project. That's what I want to see for your cards as well, if you want. For the other class, Miss Elizabeth Holderfield, let's see if I can make this larger too. So here she's working out the back of her card. Again, make sure that your card is nice and readable. She's including all of her different designs on her design. I think she's even played around with this a little bit more, and I'll show you some other things. Now, when she designed her face cards, she did them all in Illustrator, like I said, working first in black and white. Then later on, she went in and added color to it. We'll look at one of hers. She actually has an issue with some of her cards that I'll show you. Again, playing around with the back, playing around with the style of the themes. But when she went to do each of her different suits, she added lots of details to her final designs. So it's more than just a flat design. There's lots of sprinkles, there's highlights, shadows, there's gradations of color. This is the level of detail that I'm looking for your design. For Rachel, let's see, open up her cards. Now, Rachel's still in the sketching phase. Again, Rachel's taken my illustration class, and so she's looking up lots of different fairies and mythical creatures. Love that she started off with these great hand-drawn sketches. And with these sketches, I get a good idea of how everything should look. Just make sure when you're coming up with these designs that these are your own designs. You can certainly look at things for inspiration, but I don't want to copy or trace something that already exists. I want you to use your own skills to create these designs. But with these, they're very, very detailed. These would all look great as their own individual cards. For Daniel, I love this style. So you're taking that exercise that we did, and for yours, you got dogs as your streets and alleys game, and you're applying it, making it look very, very stylistic for the overall theme. Again, you started off in black and white, then you went in and added the color, and of course you're playing around with the style of the background. This looks really, really good. It's a good start for each one of them. I'm eager to see the rest of the different style of dogs for each of the different suits. One thing I would recommend, I like the background in that it's not just a solid color, but I would want to see something that's a little bit more either textured or something less plain than a simple gradient on the background, though it does fit well. Also play around with some of your fonts that you have. I think you could find a font that maybe matches a dog theme or something along this way. Maybe the thing that I'm looking at is, instead of it being a solid black color for your font, see if you can also incorporate some colors that are within your images that you're working on. So in this case, I think one of the light blues or a darker brown would really tie that together. Otherwise, that looks really, really good. Good direction that you're working through for these. Let's see, Miss Hannah. So Hannah's got a space theme going on. Again, love the illustration designs that you're doing, nice hand-drawn. I even like the hand lettering that you're placing within each of your cards. One thing I will suggest, keep this in mind when you're designing your cards. If you're going to do the entire card just in Illustrator, make sure that you're designing the card in addition to some bleed edge around the area. You don't want to have any information running too close to the edge of your card, because when you export it and send it to me, it's just going to get cut off. So make sure you've got plenty of bleed edge around this, as well as pulling this information in just a little bit so that it's not too close to the edge of your design. I like that you've done a different color scheme for each individual suit. I think even on some of your other ones, yeah. So now you've got the different characters that you're playing. As far as readability of the name, I think this is a little bit too, there's a lot going on. So it's a little bit too difficult to read. Now you've got this shape in the background underneath your text that you have. I think if you lightened up that shape, maybe even incorporate it where it's just almost a solid color. So like solid white or a solid, this lighter tan kind of color. I think that would make your card a little bit easier to read. Otherwise, it's a little bit too busy with a lot of information that's on here.
I changed the back of the card. I changed the colors because it was too dark.
Okay, excellent. So you're already working through that. Great. Let's see. Love the little designs. Again, lots of details. That's what I'm looking for. You've even added little textures that are in there. Those look really, really good. It's abducting the pizza from there. So very fun. Again, if you're doing each one of these for each individual card, make sure your cards are set up that you've got some bleed around each of the edges as well. Maybe in a moment, I'll show you guys how to set up the Illustrator file for that. And then we've got Rebecca, excuse me, she's keeping the same theme. Again, adding some details, adding gradations of color. I think she's just worked through each of the different parts of her design. So now she's going to go back in and add patterns and work through the rest of it. So far, so good. I think everybody's on the right direction that I've seen. Just make sure the cards that you're designing do have enough details and are kind of fitting a different style throughout the entire package. Real quickly, does anybody have any questions or any direct issues? One thing I wanted to show you, so Elizabeth contacted me. So this is the colorized version of her cards. And she was asking me how she can start to apply the textures to her cards, or use her theme that we had, that exercise that we did to apply the textures. If you want to do that, so if you're designing your cards flat in Illustrator, now we need to bring it into Photoshop. Here's what you need to remember to do. If you look at her cards, she did each of her cards, let's see if I can pull it up, on its own individual artboard in Illustrator. This means all of her cards are kind of in the same file. That's okay to start, but to do this exercise, to add the texture in Photoshop, each one of these needs to have its own individual Illustrator document. So what I've done is I've copied her design and I've placed it inside of its own individual Illustrator document so that only that artwork is there. From here, when I go to my layers, let's see, pull it over. Come on, Jim. There we go. Under my layer options, I can take all of this and I need to break up everything to have its own individual layer. And this is where you go to your option and tell it to build it out or release everything. And I think it was, I can't remember if it was sequence or build. I think it was sequence. But everything should have its own individual layer now. From here, I can go up to File and I can export it as a Photoshop file. So we'll do Export As. And the format is going to be as a Photoshop. There it is, PSD. Now, once we export it, the magic happens is to make sure that we're writing all the layers that we have. So we don't want it to be a nice flat image. We want it to be high quality with layers. We'll say export, give it a second to think about that. Once it's done, now I should be able to jump in, not to zoom, and let's see if I can, yeah. So here's her Photoshop file of her document. Let's fire up Photoshop and let's see if I actually saved it up correctly. Aha. So there's her little dude. Of course, he's a little bit too small on here. That's okay. But I should be able to open up my layers and now I can start to place all the textures within that layer. I'm gonna grab my crop tool, make this a little bit larger so I can see it. Give it a second to think about it. Cool. Now I can grab my selection tool and I can click on whatever layer that I want. So if I wanted to add a texture to this hat at the top, click on the top, automatically picks out my layer that I want. And I can go in, I can place one of those textures onto here. I won't do the whole thing, but I'll do just this one. So we'll do place embedded on my desktop. There's my textures. And I'm just going to choose a texture at random. That looks good. Again, it's going to be super large. Totally fine. I can scale this down. And the magic happens in here. Whoops. Because this image, this picture is on top of the layer that I want, all I've got to do is turn on that clipping mask and it masks itself inside of here. And then from here, I can start playing around with my different blending modes to give me that textured look and overlay. The other thing you can do is, even inside of this clipping mask, you can grab your brush tool and you can paint shadows and highlights. So if I made a new layer on top of here, notice that it's still clipped inside of layer 58. I can grab my paintbrush tool. I can get like a darker color. I was playing around with some different ones. Let's just do a basic one here. And I can go in and I can start to paint in some shadow type areas. So if I wanted to add some variety to that texture, that's one particular way that I can paint in here. All that's happening for this one. So again, if you're designing everything in Adobe Illustrator, move my stuff out of the way, jump back into Illustrator. Make sure each of your characters or your design is on its own individual photo or Illustrator document, and you need to build it out in sequence. So once it's built or released all the layers into sequence, once it's done here, that's where you can go and you can export it as a Photoshop file and use that for your design. You don't have to use that technique, but it is a quick and easy way of just adding some basic details and some texture to otherwise flat but colorful design. So far, so good? All right, so there's that. Got my concentration game working through. The last thing, well, I don't think there was anything else that I needed to be able to show you guys. When you go to the Moodle page, you will be turning in the, should have a place. Sorry, there we go. Should have a place for you to be able to upload and turn in your game instructions. Now, keep this in mind. I'm not requiring you to print and fold and cut anything else. So I'm going to take that part away. But I do want you to save this as a PDF from InDesign. So very quickly, let me remind everybody. To make a PDF in InDesign, you don't necessarily save it, you have to export it. But once I've got the entire page designed out, we'll go up to File, down to Export, and do make sure you've got PDF saved as your format down here. I'm going to call this my instructions. With this PDF, I want to make sure it's a nice printable, high quality. So up at the very top, you've got some presets, and I'm going to choose a high quality print. With high quality print, make sure I tell you, I'm sorry, telling y'all incorrectly. I'm looking at my instruction sheet now. Not a high quality, a press quality. Press quality is going to turn on your marks and bleeds. I'm going to turn those on too, and that'll save everything as a nice high quality image. Once I save this PDF, I want to be able to see those marks and bleeds and turn that on. So now when I hit export, I think I've got it saved on my desktop. There it is here. This is something I can send to the printer, have them trim everything down and have everything looking good for that design. Obviously, I'm not finished, but that's how I want you to save it up. All right, so for today, that's all that I needed to demo and to show you. Does anybody have any questions or issues so far?
So are all the card designs due tonight?
They are not. They should be due on Wednesday. What do I have as the
on
due date?
Moodle.
Do I have that on Moodle as today? April the 8th?
The actual due date on the Moodle turn-in thing says tonight.
Uh-oh, my bad, guys. April the 8th. Everything should be due by April the 8th for your package design. Let me update that.
And when we're submitting that, are we, I see the instructions say to share a link with you to Dropbox.
Yes.
So we'll just send that to you via email and that'll be our submission.
Correct. When you upload everything, those cards, they're going to be so big, you won't be able to put them onto Moodle. Bear with me one second. Where are you seeing April?
Under project card design. Down.
Down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is. My bad, y'all. There we go. That is incorrect. I'm sorry. Nothing is due today. Please don't freak out. Nothing is due today. Everything you got till the rest of this week to work to turn that on. Actually, next class, I'll talk a little bit more about saving your cards. That's what I wanted to show you. Let me show you my cards that I'll work on. But yes, once you save these, because there's so many of them, they're going to be high quality. There's no way to turn it in on Moodle. So if you go to, let's see, I'm going to go to my Gmail. If you go to your page at the top, to your Google Drive, you should be able to create a new folder. I'll do this very quickly. New folder, there it is. And I'm going to call this Mr. Ivy's Game Cards. Cool. And create that folder. Inside of this folder, this is where I'm going to drop all of my JPEGs or TIFF images for each of your cards. Once you're finished, if you go up to the top, you can share this folder with people. So when you turn on share, this is where you can type in my email address or my wife's email address or whoever, find Mr. Ivy and share that folder with me. That should be able to get it to me. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I'll record that and have that ready for y'all next class as well. Let me show you my cards. That's what I wanted to show you. So I've been working through each of mine. Not just the back of my card design. So I played around with this. I didn't necessarily like this style of lettering, so I redid my lettering. Oops, excuse me. And I like this style of design, so I can read that much, much better. It's lighter with a darker overlay. Played around with some of the styling on my text. Each of my cards has the same style. So in this case, I just wanted to have, because it's a memory game, I wanted the cards to be very quick and easy to remember. So I set up a template for, in this case, my cupcakes, placed a cupcake, and all I had to do was change out the number for each one. You can see when I saved it, I saved mine as a JPEG. When I go to donuts, same layout, all I did was swap out the design. Different background, obviously different artwork, and different color scheme, but it fits well with the design. Now, when I go to my face cards, those are going to have a different style of lettering. You don't have to do this style where you've got just your theme or your suit and the number. If you want to do the traditional where you list out all 9 or all whatever number that you have, you can do this as well. So this can be done, but for me, I chose to do my card design this way. But I'm working through each one of those. So I set up a template. I should have a Photoshop document around. There it is. So here's my little template design. And all I've got to do is open up this Photoshop and change out that text layer, update the text, and then update the image, whatever is necessary for that suit, and work through each one. I'm going to do the same thing for my other 2 different suits. And then I'm also going to, of course, add my King, Queen, and Jack designs, and I'll have those ready as well. So that's what I'm working through for my cards. Also got my box design, and now I've got my instruction sheet to place that in there. So far, so good? All right. Any questions, anything else that I can show you? Otherwise, this is going to be the end of our demo. The rest of this time is for you guys to be able to work through this particular project. Finally, before we go, don't forget registration has opened up. I've emailed a couple of people. I'm still working through getting everybody's schedules planned out. So I'm going to send that to you. If you need immediate access, since most of you guys are juniors going up to your senior year, you should be able to register today or tomorrow. Be sure to register sooner than later. Work out your schedule, and if you've got problems, let me know. Otherwise, if class is closed out, it's going to be kind of difficult to get you into those, and I want to make sure there's no conflicts of interest or any conflicting in classes that we have. But that's the next thing that I'm working through. All right. Otherwise, I'm going to say bye-bye. This will be the end of our Zoom. I'm going to jump back on in a couple of minutes. So if you have any problems or questions, I'll be available for the rest of class time today. All right. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.